While normally we dressed in practical jeans and t-shirts, perfect for climbing trees and getting dirty, with our grandparents, we always dressed in our very best clothes. We might be adorned in floaty floral sundresses or matching Mackenzie kilts to celebrate our Scottish ancestry. Our faces were scrubbed clean, and our hair brushed and curled. Nonnie and Papa often took us on a journey down to Sutton Forest in the Southern Highlands to show us our family history and where we came from. On the long drive down, through Mittagong and Mossvale, they would tell us romantic stories about our ancestors, the Atkinson family, who had once owned great swathes of this beautiful rolling countryside. They were fascinating stories of adventure, bravery, tragedy, determination, and defiance. In hindsight, there was a theme that ran through many of my grandmother's stories, and it was about the strong and clever women from whom we were descended. Women who faced almost impossible difficulties, but who tackled them with courage, strength, and dignity, and managed to live rich and meaningful lives. These stories were truly inspirational. When at last we arrived at Sutton Forest, a small English-style village built around the church and an inn, we bumped along a rough dirt road until we came to an ancient line of elm trees and the locked gates of Oldbury. We would peer through the prickly hawthorn hedges at the grand old house that had been built by our great-great-great-great-grandparents, Charlotte and James Atkinson, in 1828. During our childhood, the golden sandstone house was surrounded by overgrown gardens and looked neglected and forlorn. It seemed like something out of a fairy tale. Romantic, forgotten by time. We would visit the churchyard where the family were buried and try to read the faint script on the family vault. The elaborate stone vault had subsided into the marshy ground. It was so sad to think of those long-ago ancestors struck down by their various tragedies and misadventures. My grandparents' stories of the Atkinsons were so vivid that it seemed as though we knew them all personally. Artistic Charlotte, her first husband James, their 3 daughters, Charlotte Elizabeth, our great-great-great-grandmother, Emily and Louisa, and their son, James John. We felt we knew their personalities, their talents and weaknesses, their romances and their griefs, and their triumphs. These stories had all been passed down from mother to child for over 150 years. We heard about the romance between James and Charlotte, who met on board the ship that carried her from England to Australia to be a governess for the MacArthur family. He tipped his hat to her as he climbed the gangplank, and only 3 weeks later, they were engaged to be married. It was love at first sight. They built their home together and named it Oldbury, after James's birthplace in Kent. For many years, Kate and I dreamed of travelling to England together to discover the special places in our family history. One of our many joys in researching this book was visiting the beautiful stone and red brick Oldbury house near Ightham, with its ancient oak trees and rambling gardens. Charlotte was an outstanding teacher and schooled all 4 of her children herself, educating them to a standard that was extremely rare in the colony, and indeed in England. Her passion for natural history was unusual for a woman of this time, and her scientific interests were wide-ranging, covering zoology, ornithology, etymology, conchology, mineralogy, geology, and botany. According to an article in the Sydney Morning Herald, she was one of the most accomplished women of her era. When Charlotte was in dire financial straits and desperately needed funds to support her children, she wrote a book, the first children's book to be published in Australia. It may well have been inspired by her frustration that there were no children's books portraying Australian experiences.